I'll tell you what, folks, I was going to run a story about the current hot topic throughout the UK at this moment in time, and that's the grooming gangs. It's all over the place at the moment, especially with Musk's involvement. And I had something to tell you, which I will at the end of this message. But let me just link something on along the same lines, and then I'll tell you what my thoughts are, because many out there are asking for a big public inquiry, a huge inquiry, and Labour don't want to do it. Starmer doesn't want to do it. I've been saying for 2 or 3 days it should be done, it needs to be done, and so on and so forth. I've changed my views since then, and after reading this story earlier today, the views that I've changed them to this morning seem pretty apt now. I was reading about a chap earlier. His name is, and I might pronounce it wrong, I don't mean anything by that, I do promise it. Again, I think he's another Pakistani, I think he's another Muslim. He was involved in the grooming gangs, one of the people right at the top of the pyramid in Rochdale. His name, I think, is Qari Abdul Raf. Qari Abdul Raf. Anyway, I think in 2012 he was convicted of running one of these grooming gangs in that there Rochdale. And he was supposed to serve, I think, 6.5, 7 years in jail. Anyway, he got out early. I think he got out after 2.5 years or something like that. Anyway, in 2014, I think it was, he was told that when he came out of prison, he was going to be deported. That's what they were all told, they were going to be deported. I mentioned yesterday in one of the videos I did that they all appealed it and appealed it and appealed it, and virtually all still over here. And they've used taxpayers' money, they've had legal aid to appeal things. And Abdul himself, he appealed it. Now, I think on a couple of occasions it's been said that he has to be deported. Each time he's took it up in court and he's won through. But I believe what he's done is, I believe he's handed in his Pakistani citizenship. He's been a dual citizen, Pakistan and Great Britain. He's now handed that in, and he says he can't go to Pakistan because he's not a Pakistani citizen, and he deserves to be allowed to stay over here with all his family. But folk are saying that they didn't realise what was in their midst. People that were living near him, because he's in the same house he lived in when he was convicted, they didn't realise what kind of person he was, and basically that he was a paedophile and what he was doing to young British girls. And they say it's crazy. He walks around the streets like he owns the place. He's only working at this moment in time as a delivery driver for one of these delivery apps, like your Deliveroo or something similar to that. But folk are saying, imagine how it'll be if one of the girls, one of the kiddies that he's interfered with years and years ago, gets a delivery and he's there at the front door delivering it. They're not going to know who's going to deliver the food. Nobody's going to know. There could be a number of girls that he's interfered with and messed about with that, go on for an app, look for some food from wherever it may be, and he's there delivering the stuff. They say it's just totally wrong, and I've got to agree. I was thinking to myself this morning, I read that story this afternoon, I thought to myself this morning, I was all for them holding an inquiry, and then I thought, well, they say they held one about 3 or 4 years ago now. I think it concluded 3 or 4 years ago. I believe it went on for many a month, and I believe it cost millions of pounds. And what they're saying is, I think they came up with 20 or 22 recommendations. They gave them all to the Conservatives who were in at the time, and they never carried any of them out. So really, it was just a waste of time. They're now talking about holding another independent review, a national review. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's all well and good, but it'll take months and months and months, and maybe even years to run its course. It'll cost a hell of a lot of money, and then whether the government takes them up on things or not, it's wasting more years and more years and more years. While all at this time, young children, young kiddies, in various towns throughout the UK are getting abused. And I thought what they need to do, they need to put some kind of cut-off in the government or governments. Every political party needs to get together and say, right, we need to stop this now. We need to stop it. We know this country isn't brilliant through everything. We know our only problem in this country isn't Pakistani Muslim men with grooming. We know we've got other problems other than that. But this has become a huge, huge problem over, like, say, 20 years. Folk are getting away with absolutely blue murder, and they're still getting away with things, and the tail is wagging the dog here. So what we propose, this is what the Labour Party should be saying, what we propose to do is this. From, let's say, July the 1st, if anybody of the Asian persuasion, Pakistani, let's say Pakistani Muslims, because that's been historically what it's been, is found guilty of interfering with young white children in this country, firstly they go to prison, they spend 10 years in jail, no more, no less, no let out for good behaviour, they spend 10 years in jail, And at the end of those 10 years, they're put on a plane and deported. No excuses, no nothing. There's no right of appeal. You can't go to any briefs. You can't get legal aid. That's the way it's going to go. From July the 1st, if you're convicted, you do 10 years. Doesn't matter whether you're high up in the gang or low up. Doesn't matter what involvement you've had. If we can prove that you're guilty, if we've got witness statements saying that and we believe that you're guilty, through a court of law, you do 10 years in jail. After that 10 years, bang, you're out of the country. I'll tell you now, it would stop things a lot quicker than it is now. It really, really would. Because that's the kind of deterrence that's needed. It's nothing to do with inquiries and deciding what to do. They need to just decide what to do with no inquiry. That's probably what's needed. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen because we put everybody's feelings and everybody, everything before anything else. Justice comes last. And we can't be seen to be racist, can we? No, we can't. Something like that's never going to happen. But if something radical like that did happen, it might just end the cancer that's out there at the moment, because it is a cancer and it's getting no better whatsoever. And I just pity those young children in Rochdale, as I say, that are getting a takeaway in all innocence and don't know who's going to be coming to the doors. Sick, isn't it, really? Sick. Person should be deported now, but sadly isn't. Very, very sad.